The courtroom doors creak open, the sound swallowed by whispers. Journalists scramble for seats, pens poised, as the air thickens with anticipation. Never before has a family so private, so complicated, brought its disputes into a public court. Yet here they are, the Browns, walking into a storm they set in motion themselves. Kody sits at the center of it all, his face stiff, his hands clasped too tightly. To his right, Robyn lowers her gaze, pretending not to hear the murmurs trailing the courtroom. Christine refuses to do the same. She looks straight ahead, jaw set, a fire in her eyes that says everything she has waited years to say will finally leave her lips today. Janelle adjusts her papers, controlled but restless, the kind of quiet that hides a brewing storm. Meri lingers, never entirely inside nor outside, her presence as haunting and undecided as the bond she still has with the man now under trial. The judge enters, a sharp voice rising above the noise. Silence snaps into place. This is not marriage counseling. This is law. Every testimony here will carry weight that no family gathering could contain. The story the world only half guessed at inside living rooms and desert homes is about to spill under oath and record. The court clerk begins reading the charges, and the tension builds with each line. Financial mismanagement, emotional neglect, secret legal documents. None of it is criminal by itself. But in this courtroom, accusations are weapons, and reputations are already beginning to crack. What was once whispered between sisters is now evidence chained to bind or liberate. The real question is not who betrayed who first, but who will have enough left at the end of this trial to survive the truth. Kody shifts his chair as the judge calls for opening statements. Robyn's lawyer rises first, her voice soft but cutting. She paints Kody as a husband who sacrificed everything for his family, misunderstood, pushed beyond limits, and now facing false claims created out of resentment. Her words drip with sympathy, but Christine exhales sharply, fed up with the story being shaped in front of her without her voice. When Christine's attorney stands, the tone shifts in an instant. Gone is any sense of fragile loyalty. Instead, every sentence slices through the air, painting the picture of a husband who favored one wife, abandoned the others, and used his role as patriarch to control finances and children alike. Christine keeps her eyes locked on Kody as the words spill, as if saying, "You know this is true. You know we're done pretending." Janelle watches quietly, but her pen scribbles notes furiously. She has receipts, details, and enough paperwork to bury the entire narrative. She waits for her turn, but the storm in her silence is already shaking the room. The judge glances toward Meri, asking if she intends to speak. For a split second, she hesitates, her hands trembling in her lap. Everyone is waiting for her, but whether Meri takes the stand or stays behind the veil of half-truth is the suspense that hangs thick in the air. The longer Meri stays quiet, the more the audience and the courtroom both start to wonder, whose side will she take when the moment finally comes? And with that silence, the first day in court slams into recess, leaving every person in that room desperate for what happens next. The courtroom fills again after recess, and a strange electricity hangs in the air. That first morning jitter is gone. Now the tone has shifted, sharpened. Everyone knows today someone is going down. Christine is the first to take the stand, her voice steady but carrying the weight of years. She begins slow, describing the early years when she believed in the vision of family, in loyalty, in love spread across households. But her testimony pivots, turning sharp. She recounts late-night confrontations, the unequal treatment of children, and the moment she knew something was deeply wrong. With every word, her eyes never leave Kody. She isn't talking to the judge, not really. She's talking to him. Kody tries to keep his expression calm, but his jaw knots as Christine begins pulling out specifics. Receipts, bank withdrawals. Vacations taken with one wife, while others scrape to make ends meet. Murmurs ripple through the courtroom as page after page is laid on the table. Christine is not here to beg for justice. She is here to expose. Robyn tries to hold herself together in the gallery. She dabs her eyes with tissue, shaking her head as if Christine's words are lies designed to hurt. Her attorney leans close, whispering. But Robyn's body betrays her, racked with visible tension. Christine's voice grows sharper, her tone filling the air with years of bottled frustration finally. Unchained, the courtroom turns when Christine recounts one night, the night she claims to have overheard Kody promising Robyn's children things he never promised to hers. A softer voice at first, but then Christine slams her hand on the rail of the witness stand. Gasps echo. Even the judge raises a brow. This is no longer testimony. It's raw emotion unleashed inside wood and marble walls. This is the moment viewers lean in because Christine's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about proof. And once proof enters the room, no one walks away the same. Janelle's posture stiffens on the bench. She glances at Christine, almost like an unspoken nod, then back at her binder overflowing with notes. She knows her time is coming, and her details may pack the heaviest strike. But today, Christine's fire has burned bright enough. As Christine finishes, she looks directly at the judge, her voice quieter now, filled more with exhaustion than rage. I gave him everything I had, and in return, he gave everything to someone else. That silence afterward is haunting. Kody storms to his lawyer's table, whispers loud enough to catch attention. He shakes his head, his hand slamming on the desk once before sitting down again, lips pressed thin. The mask is cracking. For years, he told his own version of the family's story to cameras. Today, he is forced to watch someone else rewrite it in sworn testimony. Robyn cannot hold back. She bursts into tears, and through sobs insists out loud that none of it is true, drawing the judge's gavel and a stern order to stay seated. The audience sees now the split so wide it can never be mended. Meri lowers her head, her face unreadable, but her clenched fists tell the truth of her turmoil. But when Christine steps down, a shadow passes through the room. Everyone's eyes shift to the next witness, because what comes next could unravel Kody more than testimony ever could. The court clerk calls the witness, and Janelle rises from her seat, gripping her papers like a weapon. What Christine gave in fire, Janelle is about to deliver in cold steel precision. And just like that, the courtroom readies for another eruption. That's the close of Session 2, about Christine's fiery testimony, ending with suspense on Janelle stepping up to testify with evidence in hand. For Session 3, things will get even heavier. Janelle's calculated, detail-packed testimony will deliver shocking documentation, while cracks appear in Robyn and Kody's defense. This is where we'll push the emotion into heartbreak and betrayal, with a retention booster line placed right before the drop. The court clerk calls Janelle to the stand. She walks slowly, her file held like a shield, her face calm but unyielding. Unlike Christine's fury, Janelle doesn't explode. She tightens the pressure in another way. She makes the courtroom lean forward because her words demand proof, and her proof lives between the lines of contracts, receipts, and financial statements. Once seated, she places her thick binder down with a heavy thud, the sound echoing across the polished wood. Her lawyer wastes no time. Mrs. Brown, can you explain what's inside this binder? Janelle's voice is steady. This is everything. Accounts, transfers, withdrawals, money that disappeared without explanation. Pages begin to display one after another, projected for the court to see. The neat columns, the signatures, the dates, each detail is a crack in the image Kody has fought to hold. The judge leans closer, adjusting his glasses. Janelle reads from one record aloud. It shows thousands withdrawn under the family's joint funds. Yet, unlike other shared expenses, the money is tied to one residence. That residence belongs to Robyn. The air shifts instantly. All eyes turn to her. She dabs her eyes, her voice faint, claiming she never knew of these details, that she never asked for favors. But Janelle doesn't blink. She flips to the next page. Another transfer, another record, another link back to the same account. The gallery stirs. Journalists scribble furiously. For once, Kody does not look up. His head dips low, his hand fixed across his mouth. The patriarch who once commanded rooms now looks small in one. This is the scene where viewers lock in, because every figure on that page feels like a nail driven into the coffin of Kody's credibility. Christine nods slowly from the bench, her anger cooled but her gaze sharp. She knows the hardest evidence doesn't come in shouts but in calm, pointed revelation. And Janelle is building the kind of story numbers don't allow you to deny. The tension bursts when Janelle stops reading and looks up directly at Kody. Her words cut through the silence. "You knew the money wasn't yours alone. You told us it was for the family, so explain to me. Explain to all of us why I'm looking at proof it went to one home." Kody slams his hand on the table. His lawyer jumps in, objecting loudly, claiming Janelle is editorializing, not testifying. But the damage is already done. Gasps ripple through the room. Even the judge allows a pause, as if letting those words linger in their weight. Robyn hides her face, shoulders shaking with sobs. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't." But her denial only stokes the fury in Christine's eyes and the ache in Janelle's voice. The courtroom now sees the fractures not as rumor, but as evidence written in ink. Meri clutches the edge of her seat, her body torn between outrage and reluctant defense. She has lived through favors, secrets, whispered promises from Kody that sounded too good to be true. And now seeing it spread in the open before strangers makes her stomach twist. Janelle's testimony continues, every word like another pin pulled from a grenade. But when she reaches toward the back of the binder, her attorney places a hand on hers, asking if she's certain. She nods. Then slowly she produces a document none of the wives have seen. A signed form, bearing Kody's name, transferring a family asset into a trust tied directly to Robyn's name. The silence that follows is suffocating. If Christine's voice cracked Kody's armor, Janelle's evidence is the blow that shatters it into pieces, leaving the courtroom waiting for his defense to collapse. And yet, what no one knows is that there's another shadow over this trial, one that hasn't been spoken of, until Meri decides which side of the truth she belongs to. The courtroom buzzes after Janelle's devastating testimony. Kody sits stiff, arms folded, lips pressed into a thin line. Robyn whispers to him, trying to build a shield against the storm, but the storm has already settled in. The judge calls for the next witness. Meri's name echoes across the chamber. All eyes rise toward her. She doesn't move at first. She sits there, face pale, fingers knotted together. It takes a long moment before she finally stands, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. With slow, deliberate steps, she makes her way to the front. You can feel the weight of silence pressing down on her shoulders, an entire history condensed into this walk to the witness chair. When she sits, her eyes stay down, refusing to meet Kody's stare. She swears her oath, her voice thin but steady. Then the questions begin. At first, they're simple. The lawyer asks about timelines, family decisions, conversations behind doors. Meri answers politely but vaguely, her tone cautious, as though she's afraid of tearing open wounds she still feels every day. But the courtroom wants more, and so does the judge. The questions tighten. Did she witness favoritism? Did she experience being left out of financial discussions? Her lips tremble. For a second, it looks like she won't answer, and then she whispers, "Yes." The word echoes louder than a shout. People lean forward in their seats. It's the first crack in her composure. She breathes slowly, her voice breaking. She recounts how she was often excluded, how promises made to her were not honored. Time after time, she was told to be patient, while others received attention, funds, even affection. Her testimony paints not rage, but tragic loneliness. Years of being invisible in her own family. Tears trail down her cheeks as she lifts her gaze for the first time, looking at Kody with a mix of love that never died and pain that never healed. This is the moment the audience realizes they are not watching a witness against Kody. They are watching his own history condemning him. Piece by piece, Kody shakes his head firmly, mouthing the word no over and over. Robyn grips his arm, her sobs growing louder. But the jury is no longer looking at him. They are locked on Meri, because her heartbreak is undeniable, unmanufactured, unspun. The lawyer asks if she knew about the trust documents Janelle presented earlier, the property tied to Robyn alone. Meri closes her eyes, exhaling heavily. She shakes her head no, voice low but guttural. "I didn't know. I was never told." A gasp ripples through the gallery. Christine nodding, Janelle watching stiffly. Her next words come slowly, as if pulled from her chest. "I never wanted to be against him. Even now I don't. But if you ask me if he was fair, I can't say he was. Not to us. Not to our children." Her words hang in the air like a truth bomb. devastating because they carry no malice, only loss. Kody's attorney objects, but the judge waves it off. The testimony will stand. The weight of Meri's honest sorrow paints Kody not as a man attacked by bitter wives, but as one who even alienated the woman who stood longest by his side. Now the attention shifts back to Kody. His expression darkens, his jaw locked. For the first time since the trial began, he looks like a man cornered, not outraged. He grips the table so tightly his knuckles pale, his body shaking with anger he can no longer hide, and the haunting question lingers. If even Meri has spoken against him, who will stand for Kody when his turn comes to testify? The courtroom falls into hushed chaos as Meri steps down from the stand, her fragile composure cracked open before everyone, and none of the sisters meet Kody's desperate eyes. The courtroom stiffens as the judge instructs the defense to call its witness. After a moment of quiet, Robyn's lawyer announces the name that everyone knew was coming but still dread to hear. Kody Brown. Kody rises from his chair with a stiff motion, shoulders squared as if he is preparing for battle. He walks to the stand, his presence commanding, but his eyes burn with scattered fury. He swears his oath with a sharp voice that seems to challenge the room in itself. His lawyer begins gently, asking him to share what kind of husband and father he believes he has been. Kody seizes the opportunity, his words loud and animated, as though he is speaking not just to the court but to the world watching outside. He paints a picture of sacrifice, juggling the demands of multiple households, pouring his energy into creating stability for an unconventional family. He complains about years of judgment, about the impossible expectations placed upon him by wives who, in his words, wanted all of me when they knew they had to share. Robyn nods fiercely, her tears flowing in solidarity. But across the room, Christine scoffs audibly, shaking her head in disbelief. The judge orders silence, but the tension crackles hotter. Kody leans forward, pointing toward Christine and Janelle. They resent me because I loved her more, he says, gesturing broadly toward Robyn. A wave of murmurs surges across the seats. The admission doesn't defend him. It validates every accusation made. Christine bolts upright, her face flushed with rage, whispering furiously to her lawyer. Janelle scribbles another note, pressing her pen so hard it nearly tears the paper. This is the kind of confession that doesn't save a man. It buries him, and the audience knows there is no going back from it. The questioning grows sharper. His lawyer pushes him to clarify, to shift focus onto financial responsibility. Kody insists the transfers and trusts were strategic, necessary to protect assets. But under cross-examination, the story wobbles. Christine's lawyer presses on inconsistencies, pointing out documents that contradict his statements. Kody stammers, his confident voice breaking into strained answers. A bead of sweat slides down his temple as he snaps back. You don't understand what it's like managing something this big. The judge silences his outburst. For a moment, the courtroom is utterly still. He exhales sharply, his body trembling from the effort of holding himself together. Janelle's attorney introduces new questions about favoritism between children. Kody, still heated, blurts out names and examples, insisting he treated everyone fairly, but unwittingly revealing details that show his bias. Each word pulls him deeper into a corner. He doesn't notice Robyn burying her face in her hands, knowing his pride is dismantling his own case. Christine sits calm now, leaning back in her chair, her eyes locked on him with a cold, satisfied gaze. Janelle looks less angry and more resolute, as if every word Kody speaks cements the inevitability of what's coming. Meri lowers her chin, staring at the floor, unable to watch this collapse. By the time he finishes his testimony, Kody no longer looks like the commanding leader he portrayed when he stepped up. He looks smaller, tired, reckless words hanging in the air like poison no one can swallow back. And the wives know, the judge knows, even the gallery knows, this story no longer belongs to him. And when the court clerk announces the next piece of evidence waiting to be played, everyone realizes there is still one card left, and it might be the one that ends the entire trial. Whispers ripple across the room as the clerk announces the next item on the evidence list. Attorneys shuffle papers, the judge leans forward, and the gallery cranes their necks, sensing something monumental is about to hit. For days now, the testimony has been cutting Kody down piece by piece. But this new evidence is different. It doesn't come from Christine or Janelle. It comes from someone no one expected to take such a risk. Meri stands up, clutching a small digital recorder in her hand. Her steps are hesitant, but her eyes for once are clear, focused. She says she has something the court hasn't heard, something that was never meant to see daylight. She holds her chin high when Kody's attorney immediately objects, claiming it's irrelevant, it's fabricated, it violates trust. But the judge allows it, reminding the room that if it's real, it belongs to the case. The device is placed carefully in front of the clerk, and a hush falls over the entire chamber. The play button is pressed. Static flickers through the speakers, then a voice. A voice everyone knows, Kody's voice. It starts casually, almost harmless in tone. A conversation recorded late at night. He speaks about dividing finances, about taking care of Robyn first because she deserves it more, about not wasting resources on certain children because, in his words, they'll be fine on their own. Gasps break out before the words are finished. Christine covers her mouth. Janelle presses both palms to the bench, and Robyn shakes her head violently, mouthing, "No, no, no." Then the recording cuts deeper. Kody admits, perhaps not realizing the weight at the time, that he never planned to keep the promises he made equally to all his wives. They think I'll spread it out even, but I won't. I protected the only relationship I trust. His tone on the tape is smug, cavalier, unguarded. The room feels the betrayal bleeding through each word. The moment it ends, the courtroom boils over. The gallery explodes with noise, gasping, muttering, some even shouting. Christine leans forward, eyes glassy but burning with vindication. Janelle shakes her head, fury etched into her face. Meri stays frozen, her body trembling, as if she herself lifelessly carried the blade that just pierced Kody's last defense. This is the breaking point for viewers, because hearing Kody's voice destroy his own story is more damning than any testimony could ever be. Kody springs up, shouting over the judge's gavel, insisting the recording is manipulated, taken out of context, a private moment weaponized. His voice cracks into anger, his hands waving furiously toward Meri. He points a finger at her, accusing her of betrayal, of stabbing him in the back after all their history. But his rage only makes the picture worse. The judge orders silence, nearly shouting to regain control. Robyn openly sobs into her hands, inconsolable, her face red, her shoulders shaking. She whispers through her tears that it was just private words, and not who he really is. But the words are lost under the echo of the recording still ringing in everyone's ears. Christine stares at Meri, a strange mix of gratitude and sympathy in her face. For years, she doubted whether Meri would ever pick a side. Now she has. But at the same time, it cost Meri more than the others will ever know. The look on her face reveals that. She didn't give up the tape out of revenge. She gave it up because she couldn't keep carrying it in silence. Kody collapses back onto his chair, his body bent forward, his hands gripping his scalp. For the first time in the trial, he looks undone. Not angry, not defensive, but beaten. The patriarch who once stood at the center of so much control now looks desperately small, reduced to the sound of his own words turning to knives against him. And as the court adjourns for the day, everyone knows tomorrow will not be about uncovering truth, but about deciding what's left to do with the ruins of what once was a family. The courtroom doors close on the next day, and the tension is different now. Where yesterday buzzed with anticipation, today feels heavier, almost suffocating. The tape is still whispering in everyone's memory, and the question burning inside every mind is whether anyone will stand by Kody after hearing his voice betray them all. Robyn sits stiff in her chair as the proceedings begin. Her eyes are swollen from hours of crying. She clutches at tissues like they're lifelines, twisting them into knots. When her name is called to testify, she rises shakily, her body carrying the weight of someone who knows she's stepping into fire. She takes the oath, sits down, and the lawyer begins. Robyn's voice trembles at first, but grows firmer as she speaks. She insists Kody was taken out of context, that the recording didn't reflect the man she knows. She talks about nights when he stayed awake, worrying how to support all the children, how to keep roofs over their heads. She paints him as flawed, yes, but human, struggling under impossible expectations. For a few moments, the courtroom softens. Even Christine looks down, her face unreadable, as if the shred of sympathy she once buried flickers again for a second. But then comes cross-examination. Christine's attorney asks directly, "Do you believe the wives sitting behind you are lying?" Robyn hesitates. Her mouth opens, closes, but then she forcefully says, "Yes, they twisted things. They never gave him credit for the sacrifices he made." The room gasps. Janelle stiffens instantly. Christine's eyes widen with fury, and Meri flinches as if struck. Robyn's declaration, meant as loyalty, cracks open another fissure across the courtroom. The wives are no longer against only Kody. Now Robyn has positioned herself against them too. This line tears like lightning, because audiences realize alliances are destroyed for good, and two sides of the family have turned to war inside the court itself. Christine's attorney hits harder, asking whether financial records can lie, whether Kody's own voice on tape can lie. Robyn breaks, tears flooding down her cheeks. She sobs uncontrollably but doubles down, saying she knows Kody's heart, that context matters more than words, that the others always wanted him to fail. The judge silences the shouting that breaks out in the gallery as Christine whispers audibly, "This is impossible." Janelle sits frozen, shaking her head slowly, her disappointment radiating as powerfully as Christine's rage. Meri leans inward, her voice so low it is nearly missed. She still can't see it. And yet, her words slice across the tension like a quiet knife. The emotional collapse becomes unbearable as Robyn's voice rises toward the conclusion of her testimony, a desperate plea. "He is not the villain here. You all turned him into something he's not. He loved us." She breaks down completely, unable to continue, her body heaving with uncontrollable sobs. The judge calls order, her testimony recorded in the transcript, but the damage is sealed. Instead of rescuing Kody's defense, Robyn's outburst leaves the courtroom messier, rawer, broken beyond recognition. The wives sit apart, divided into two camps that will never align again. And Kody, watching the collapse, buries his face in his hands, realizing the ally who was supposed to save him may have only made the judgment harsher. And with closing arguments looming, the question rattles louder than ever. Is there anything left this family can defend, or is it already lost forever? The judge calls the court to order one final time. The room feels hollowed, drained by days of testimony, confession, and collapse. Yet, everyone leans forward now because the closing arguments will cement the story that survives this trial. Christine's attorney begins, her voice strong and controlled. She lays out a timeline built with fiery testimony, hard documents, and the one recording that cannot be erased. Every detail fits, every fracture aligned into a picture too damning to deny. She reminds the court that this case was not about destroying a man, but about telling the truth of a family silenced for too long. Her tone is sharp but respectful, the kind of speech that pulls you in with precision. Then Janelle's counsel follows, methodical and strategic. No emotion, only evidence. Every dollar missing, every signature misplaced, every favor discreetly pointing in one direction. By the time she finishes, the room feels numb, layered in the weight of fact over feeling. The defense rises, and Robyn's lawyer speaks with urgency, trying to scrape together sympathy where little is left. She insists the wives turned anger into poison, that bitterness has colored their accounts. She argues the tape was private, spoken in frustration, never meant as evidence. Her words are emotive, but whether they pierce through the wall of proof already built is another question entirely. Robyn stares at the floor, lips quivering, while Kody glares toward the judge with a hollow defiance etched across his face. And then Kody himself breaks protocol. He rises against his lawyer's counsel, speaking directly, his voice nearly shouting. He insists he was a provider, a victim of resentment, a man crushed by impossible expectations. But his words, for all their passion, echo differently now. They sound hollow against the ledger entries, against Meri's trembling honesty, against his own voice trapped in that recording. His anger drains into silence, and he lowers himself back into his seat slowly, as if knowing the weight pressing down on him is no longer one he can lift. In this moment, the audience knows, more than losing the case, Kody has lost control of the family, and nothing can restore it. the judge delivers closing remarks. She doesn't assign guilt to one side, but she makes clear what is undeniable. Favoritism was shown, promises were broken, money was mismanaged, and bonds once sworn unshakable are shattered. There will be no tidy resolution, no victory to celebrate. There is only a family destroyed beyond repair, standing raw before the world. The gavel slams. The sound reverberates like a funeral bell for everything they once tried to build together. Christine gathers her papers calmly, not triumphant, but resolute. Janelle walks out with her head high, bound to her evidence like armor. Meri lingers longer, eyes wet, body shaking as she turns away from Kody, the silence between them more final than any court ruling. And Robyn clings to him, sobbing openly, refusing to release the man at the center of it all, even as the rest of the courtroom walks away. As the gallery empties, reporters murmur about inheritance, betrayal, favoritism. But the truth is more brutal. The truth is that justice cannot mend what was never equal to begin with. And so the question lands in your lap. If you were sitting on the bench, hearing every word, whose side would you believe? Christine and Janelle with their fire and proof? Or Robyn clinging desperately to the idea of love that survived no one else's trust? Comment below, because this verdict belongs to more than the courtroom. It belongs to you.